I had a big week, Chuck. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I'd heard rumblings and saw some things on the internet. But
Yeah. We can get into a bit of a chronological.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's get into my week. So
because we found out here.
Found out here officially, right? About 3 o'clock, get the call. It's happening. Get with Alan. Alan calls me, talked to him for a bit. They took my seat out of the Gateway car and plugged in the old 9 car and was in there about 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning. And when I got the call, man, it was a lot of emotions. It was weird. It was a bit scary. A lot of self-doubt crept in, surprisingly. Just like, all right, how's it gonna go? You gonna do good? All these things of something that's so far out of your comfort zone and something that you didn't think that was ever gonna happen, right? Ever. It's just Tuesday morning, you wake up, it's just business as usual. You're talking about what setup you're taking with the 7 car. We did our sim session the previous week, trying to get a decent balance fixed there, and then all of that's just flipped on its head, and you get plugged into a system that's on the 90-yard line. But we go, we do the podcast, still couldn't really wrap my head around what all was happening. It's just like, holy shit, you just like, it's happening. I don't know what's going to happen. Who knows?
So we left the podcast.
Yeah.
And I walked out, and we were parked next to each other in the parking garage, and you were on the phone with Chase Elliott. So what'd Chase say when he called you?
Hey, just like, man, it stinks about the circumstances it's under. He's like, man, I'm glad they picked you. You've been grinding for a long time. I know you can do a good job. He said, we've been struggling for the last couple months, but I know you're going to do us a good job and get the most out of it. So we talked a little bit more. That was the extent of that. So we get home and kind of shut the phone off and was just like hanging out with the kiddos. And I was getting in bed like 9:15, 9:30, and I got a voicemail from a unsaved number, right?
Well, I called you.
Yeah.
And you were like, I missed the call.
Yeah. At like 9:15 you called me. Yeah, he just left a voicemail. So I listened to the, hey, Corey, it's Rick Hendrick. Just, wanted to say thanks for helping out with the 9 car. And I was like, I missed the freaking call. But then I got the I got the voicemail, so I guess I can keep that for old time's sake. Not saying that it's a weekend that I want to remember, but it's cool that to just be driving, have Rick Hendrick say that you're driving one of his cars, right?
Did you call him back?
I called him back the next morning. So I told Kelly, though, it's like, I feel like she didn't really understand the reference, but you probably will, and you will. Like when you're playing, and you will. When you're playing like NASCAR 2004 career mode, and you start with like the lowest team, and then you like run decent, and you get like the next best team, and then like another team, and then you get like this notification on your phone that Rick Hendrick's calling you to drive. Like I literally felt like that way on Tuesday night. Like this is an absurd moment.
Well, Boyer used to tell the story too when Richard called him wherever he was working. He thought one of his buddies was prank calling him. So
muffler shop.
It's got to be surreal.
Yeah, and just to hear Rick's voice on the other end of the phone was bizarre. So got up early, worked out, was driving over to the shop. They wanted me to be over there like 7:30, so I was driving over there, and I was like, I'll see if Rick's up. So I called him like 7:15. Of course, he was up. Say, hey, Rick, to say that it's a dream come true to drive for you it would be an understatement. I'm excited for the opportunity, and hate how it all came about, but I appreciate you giving me the nod to do it. And he's like, thanks for helping out. When you going over there to get fitted up? And I was like, I'm on the way over there right now to get with Alan and do some pre-race stuff. We're going to go to the DIL and see what we got. And it's like, they've never been past a gift shop at that place. I'm excited to see what it's all about. And that was it. We rolled into the shop and we got to business, but walk in there and, they have their shop is freaking sweet.
Oh, it's sick. Yeah.
And how it's all organized, and they got, the 5s room, the 24s room, the 48s room, and the 9s room, and like it's like kind of like Google in a way of like they have
just a full campus. It's like a college campus. So when you got there, like where'd you go? Who let you in the door?
I just walked right in, like I was, buying a Jeff Gordon T-shirt.
Just right in the front, like the front of the 9 shop?
Yeah. And
they weren't like, hey, stop. Who are you?
No, I think the secretary recognized who I was. She just took me back there. And then they had people sitting there waiting on me. Like, hey, here's this tire carrier's uniform that might be close for you, so I just wore some tire carriers.
Yes.
Yeah, I got the full experience.
I love that. Should have given you a 2-piece.
Colleen from Thermal Control was there. She added 4 inches to the legs, and it was just.
That's got to be cool to see Colleen, because they've
helped me out along the way from Thermal Control, Paul and Colleen Matt. So, so I get in there, right, and they have you go into Allen's their office, the 9 teams office, and they have dry erase boards, and they have it looks like Einstein's laboratory of just stuff and equations and graphs written on the wall, and they just have all these things hanging of and everybody's just TV screen or computer screens and monitors going, and the race is playing. It's these guys are mean business.
Yeah.
And that was palpable as soon as you walk in. It's okay, there is a collective focus in this building, whether it's admin, whether it's teams or engineers or pit crew. There's one objective, and that's to be the best at making race cars go around in circles. So I was a bit apprehensive going in there of just not knowing what to expect. And, they start laying out. It's I've had this slow drip of just driver information or pre-race data or stuff like that. Bloop, bloop, bloop. And it was you turn the fire hose on of just all these different things and channels that I've never even seen or even knew existed. And then we looked at some of that stuff and just talked about how we were going to approach the weekend. And
how much of it was pertinent to right now that you could digest and actually put into the weekend, and how much is it I could use that all year?
Yeah, so it's hard to tell, because I think everybody looks at something different of what they want to.
Yeah.
Some guys might look at wheel angle and lateral acceleration. Some guys might look at previous trends or SMT data. So I think the more time you have to spend with that sort of data, the more you could just figure out what channels you want to look at. Because talking to Chase afterwards, he's I don't look at most of that stuff. I got my couple things, and that's it. So you can kind of get bogged down with just the amount of data that they have to give you. So we went to the sim, and we spent from 8:30 to 10:30, and you'd run all 4 setups. You'd kind of pick the one you like that kind of fits your driving style. And so I knew that William Byron ran a 33-24 with his setup, right? So you get in there and you run a 33-35, and you know that there's a 10th in it. So you just start figuring out, okay, this is how he brakes. This is how he applies the wheel. And so I start learning some little things to get down and make some lap time like he does. And fast forward to, so we ended up going with the 9s and tweaking on it. We made some changes that ultimately probably weren't the best direction, just because the DIL gave us a little bit of a false read.
What's DIL stand for?
Driver in the loop. Yeah, driver. So the sim system they build the race cars with is a simulation system, but when you put the driver in the loop of the simulation loop, that's what the DIL simulator is, right? So we get at Spire, we get static rig testing every week. They have multiple blocks a week on the motion rig, so you can kind of hone in a little bit.
So you were in the motion rig, the one that looks like Leighton McQueen's?
Yep. So we were in that for a couple of hours and got to where I could run what William was running in terms of speed, so I felt good about that, and I left okay, I'm going to be able to do it here. I feel like I can make pace. I feel like I know what to expect, because of all the racetracks I had to pick to drive the 9 car, this would be the last one I would pick, just because it's essentially the first time I've been there, because last year we blew up lap 30.
Yeah.
So I just didn't get a lot of time and didn't get a good feel for the place. So going back, I'm of course I'm driving. This is my one opportunity in a place that is where I had the least amount of laps, right?
And it's a track that if you don't have track position, you're not going to get track position. It's not a lot of opportunity to flip stages or get track position.
Yeah, so then, right, we leave Wednesday, and it's okay, I feel good about it. I feel like now seeing their systems and their processes and just how deep they are with personnel and how refined their just approach is, it's I think that now I understand how guys can get in the system, learn and grow, and develop into champions, right? You look at a William Byron, you look at Alex Bowman's an 8-time winner, developed Chase into a champ, made Kyle Larson into a champ. Okay, these guys aren't superhuman. They just are really good at their craft, and they're in a really good group, and they can figure it out. So I was okay, let's get to work. Go there.
You fly out Friday.
Flew out Friday on the Hendrick plane.
How was that?
With Kelly. They got nice snacks.
What do they?
They got good
healthy snacks.
Healthy
probably.
snacks, yeah. So I sat next to Kelly, but she slept the whole time. So I talked to Cliff.
Oh,
just
did you talk about kickball?
Dude, Cliff, ain't no room to talk kickball with.
Locked in,
dude. Like, but everybody. I mean, Alan, and everybody has their own personalities. But I can understand why that side of the garage, like, there's no room for fluff because there's no excuses if you don't win, at least on a regular basis, because there's nothing they lack. And I can also see, I had a better understanding. I told Chase this yesterday when we talked on the phone after those meetings, is like, I can understand too why he is the way he is. And I mean this as a compliment, like, to the media. He's not super outgoing. He's not doing all these different stuff, because when you're there, man, you are overloaded to an extent of driver input data from Saturday to Sunday, right? And anything that you do that's aside from studying or trying to get better, it's taking away from the overall competition side.
Yep.
So I got a bit of a peek into that, and I could understand that, why he is the way he is. And just guys in general on that side of, like, I don't really want to do that because I'm concentrating on the competition side. So we get to practice, right, and there's so many people offering advice and this and that.
Oh, everybody's putting their 2 cents.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah. And, you got guys, when I filled in for this guy or that guy, 1987, you just got to get in there and drive the car like, okay, sure, pal. So.
What'd your dad say to you in that vein?
We didn't talk very much. So there's the old school train of thought of, like, just get in there and run 90%, the car will do the work. There might have been 10% of gap between the guys who were in 15th to bottom of the field cars back in 1998 to 2005, but now the car, there's not that much of an increase with this next gen car, because now we run 17th to 21st any given week in the 7 car, right? But when we would run 21st or 20th, we were, prior to the next gen car, a second off the pace. Now we're 4/10 off the pace, so you're that much closer to the field, so the jump isn't that.
When you had, before a next gen car, 17th to 21st in a 7 car was a good day.
Yeah.
You were way worse than
getting
that.
older.
That was an attrition day.
Yeah, we were getting older, Ganassi cars, and just wasn't like what we have now.
And we've talked about it at length. If you were in a Gibbs car, Hendrick car, one of those top teams, you were almost guaranteed a top 15.
Yeah, and you just go in there and step
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got the same stuff.
Everybody's got the same stuff.
You don't have better chassis. You don't have better aero. You don't have better underbody. Like, everybody's got the same stuff.
Yep. And it's just a matter about now, the relationship that you have with your crew chief and engineer makes it even more paramount of them giving you the balance feel that you need as a driver tendencies.
Which became apparent later in the race, but in practice, so you roll out for first practice. Now, where they run, even though all the cars are the same, how much stuff was different?
Everything so they took my seat and leg brace out of the Gateway car and put it in that one. So seat-wise, it was the same. Dashboard stuff was in a different spot. So the boat switch, which is the on and off switch, ended up in a brick in the race the first lap. So we roll the top. I'll get there in a second. Remind me to get back to that.
Let's go to practice. We'll the race next.
All right, so you just lay down what would be generally when I approach practice with our car, unless I know we're in the first group and the track's clean and you can go put a PR lap up there, I'm not going to go really hammer a 98% lap, right? So I go lay down a 95% lap. They're shifting with those cars. It was a little bit new and different to get used to. It took a little bit more.
I saw you one time off of 2. Whoa.
Well, you're between 3rd and 4th gear shift there, and the way they do it, the timing was off for me. It was a little bit unnatural, so it took me pretty much all of practice to get settled in with that. The 5 actually went back to what he was comfortable with, and I stuck with the other system. So there was a little bit to get used to that. So I laid a 95% lap down, and we're 30th, right? And it's like, okay, well, let's see what kind of long run pace it's got, and just probably a little bit excited, overcharging the corner a little bit, but just unattached on the entry, couldn't quite turn. So we didn't feel very good. We look at we're looking at SMT. It's like, man, I'm getting it a little bit deeper, but I don't feel like I'm doing anything I wouldn't be doing with the other car. So go to qualify and thought we had a good draw. However the metric worked out, and on the get up to speed lap, I went into 3, and I had some tension on the shifter, anticipating it to fall in the 5th. And when I lifted to turn off in the corner, didn't realize it didn't, and was in 4th. So I went to downshift twice to go to 3rd, and I was in 2nd. So it chopped the rears off of it. Yeah, and I was 2/10 off getting to turn 1. So then I just overdrove it, trying to make up for it. And just those little.
Coming to the green. There's an art to getting more speed coming to the green too.
You can get more speed coming to the green than you can coming to the checkered, because you can open turn 3-way up and get a big run at it. And I gave all of that up.
Yep.
So then it's like.
So then you try to get more, and that's when you overcommit throttle and get in the fence a little bit off 4.
Yeah, right. So you're just trying to salvage a lap when it was killed from the jump, and you should have just abort a mission. But
nobody sees that though.
No, and there's no excuse, right? It's just like it's
just what happened.
Everything going on with all that, it's just I made a mistake. So get a terrible qualifying effort. Then we have our post practice and qualifying debrief, right, where everybody's kind of going over their balances, and Al and I were looking at the 1, and the 1 looked pretty good on average. And they can see all the people, and let's just go ahead and gravitate towards that. I think Ross's style and my style are similar. Let's just go put the 1 in, just because I didn't get a great feel of what the car needed. And get in the race and come off turn. So we had a decent start, rolled a couple on the outside, come off turn 4, and went to go reach for the shifter, and my pinky. So when my hand was on the shifter of that car, the shifter was probably an 1.5 inches closer to the dashboard, which Chase runs a taller shifter, so his hand was above it, but my hand was right at the level of where the boat switch was, the on and off key. And when I went to go reach for the shifter, I hit it with my pinky and knocked it completely off. Yeah, it knocked all the power off of it. And it took me a couple seconds to realize, okay, everything just shut right off. What happened? And you're looking around, ECU switch is up and everything. It's like, damn it. Okay. There's a switch. Let's turn it.
Yep.
So they're actually changing how they install the switches going forward of all their cars, just because they've never had somebody's hand that close to it before.
How much did that cost you?
Nothing. I mean,
we went out and then you pitted, right?
Well, we went from, I think we rolled from 20th or 30th to probably 25th or 4th the first lap.
It's a big deal.
And then we go and it's like, okay, well, now we lost all our track position. Let's pit, and then you start literally last.
Yeah.
And we could never get over the hump. We just were loose and loose in, loose off, and kind of just swung at it all day and couldn't quite hit it, and never felt like we were in a good enough position to put rights on it and get track position. But we talked about it in hindsight of that was probably worth the shot of just getting it up there, because we raced around guys who were able to hang on 34, 21.
5.
Yeah.
I mean, you and the 5 were right next to each other in the second stage. But that's the difference between a team being built around a guy and not, right? That's where continuity is key.
Yeah. So, obviously Cliff knows the verbiage that Kyle's using, and he kind of knows from previous every race that they've been working together of okay, what adjustments when he says this is what I need to give him here to the pit stop. And then the internet goes out and they lose SMT altogether, and they use time and scoring. So now they're just kind of flying blind, and we just couldn't quite get
anything. That was
anything.
my next question.
Couldn't get anything going.
When the internet went out, the whole track lost it. We didn't have pit stop film. Yeah. There was nothing. How much, in your debrief with them, how much did that hurt the communication flow for Alan and be able to make adjustments? So
he didn't realize how big of a swing the other cars were going to make gains, right? Air pressures or wedge adjustments or things like that. So you're kind of just poking at it as opposed to just grabbing it and trying to just make something happen, where the other cars migrated a little bit of a different direction. And, I think him and I both were just anticipating there being more pace in me of just trying to get it going, but I just wasn't comfortable with the balance of in and off and just couldn't make speed.
It looked like you were driving pissed off there the last 25 laps, though. I mean,
we were on a tire advantage there because we just kept putting 4 on at that point in time. We had no track position, so it's like, okay, if you're gonna at least not be on the defense, at least put 4 on it and just go. But man, it wasn't a great weekend. I mean, none of Larson ran 4th, but like you said, like those guys know.
That's why the shifter got Bowman at the end.
Yeah, the shifter got Bowman and got stuck in 2nd. So, and I don't think anybody really collectively thought that everybody was happy with their balance. But, it was definitely – I wouldn't say it was a character builder because I think I have plenty of character. But it was definitely something where, like, I didn't expect to go win. I didn't expect to go – I thought that it'd be tough to run 10th. It's a different approach. But this car, I think now, is – as important to having a good relationship with your engineer and crew chief of knowing what the drivers feel is going into the weekend than the overall car. And there's not special oil tanks or truck arms or track bars that have widgets in it and doors that move like they're not supposed to. Like those tricks are gone that those big teams used to really hone in on and have.
Just a couple engine aqueducts that people would argue with.
Yeah, I mean, there's tricks, right? There's certain guys do, but when you go to a place like that where they're not super helpful, then you're really relying on just the established relationship of what you expect, right? Because you go do the DIL and you feel like you tailored to that, and then you go to the racetrack, and then Alex and William and myself think like, shoot, the driving style in the sim wasn't even close to what the grip level was in reality. So now we tuned a little bit to that, and then it just sets you up for a tough weekend.